Hello, Internet. So I kind of wanted to talk a little this time about like a sense of personal responsibility. Because there's so many videos or like discourse online about, it's always the fault of society. It's always somebody else. The blame is always on somebody. And then like if you listen to what the internet says, like you'd think this country is on fire or something. I mean, I feel like a lot of the criticisms of like America as a country are kind of shallow. I mean, if you just, from both the left and the right. On the left you have healthcare, which 40% of the state. I'm from California. 40% of people from the state are on like state healthcare plans, which, that's a lot. So to say America, you can call California an exception in America, but if you want to socialize medicine so much, move to California. And there's Medicare plans you can sign up. There's low cost ones. And like I've actually done the calculations, like comparing like France or Germany, because that's always the example like brought up of like the ideal system. But I did like a little bit of calculations about it, and about the same amount of tax that you would pay extra for paying for the healthcare system, as it is now. Things may change in the future. It'd be roughly about the same as what you'd pay for a healthcare plan. And that's even aside the fact where if you have a stable, decent job, you're probably getting healthcare along with it. So, I think seek employment if this is really so much of a struggle. And then another thing people complain a lot about is cost of living. I should say too, another thing, people say like, single healthcare system will solve everything, but are you really confident that the American government would be able to roll out a system competently, a single healthcare system that wouldn't be an absolute train wreck? Because personally, I'm not. And that's it. One of the problems with America is, there's three main problems. Is one, the current system is so entrenched. Once things are entrenched, they're hard to change. Two is that America is very decentralized. Like, it isn't centralized as most states are in Europe. And three is waiting times. The NHS and the system in Canada hasn't exactly been doing terribly hot lately. So there are disadvantages. It's not just you go to the UK and then everything's free. You'll pay for it in other ways, even if it's not readily apparent. But another thing people often complain about is the cost of living. And in some cases this is valid, in some cases it's not. I feel like you need to go where the jobs are. Like, the concept of economic migration needs to be more ingrained into people's heads. America is better than this than other countries, but America is composed of 50 states, multiple territories. If you can't find employment across any of those states, then maybe it says more about you than it does about society. And the reality is, if you're making minimum wage, then maybe you shouldn't be living in San Francisco or LA. Just maybe. I don't know why this is such a foreign concept for people. You have to live within your means. there's a lot of cities in America that really aren't all that expensive. I mean, there's New York, there's San Francisco, which yeah, the cost the house the rent is crazy, but there's cities like Philadelphia or Salt Lake City. The rent's really not that bad relative to the relative to the salary. I mean, you can get. I mean, yes, in New York, you can. There's this in many cities. Like if you want a studio in the center, it can go for 2,000, 2,500. Some cases even 3,000. But there's a lot of cities that aren't like that, and if you aren't making big money, then maybe you don't go to a big money city. I mean, just maybe. I mean, like, use your brain. What else? What are the other? I think that's the main two things that people often complain about. Oh, I think maybe like the third major thing is, racism. And yes, racism exists. Won't deny that one bit. But if you compare America to other societies, it's not even close. Like if you compare America to Brazil, or if you compare America to Arab societies, or North African, Arab societies have to be like 5 times more racist than American ones, than Western ones. Or if you go to Brazil, I mean, go around Brazil and try to find like middle class blacks. I mean, there's some exist, but not many. In America, there is definitely like an African American middle class that exists. And if anything, I think, I'll skip that. But then if you go to some of the criticisms on the right, it's things like crime or so-called diversity. But here too, you can take steps to minimize a lot of this. I mean, one, you can leave the big city, which, that's a solution in and of itself. If you go out of the cities or into if you look, there's plenty of nice neighborhoods in America that are as safe as anywhere. So, I mean, if safety really concerns you that much, there's solutions to that. And for, if you want to be people among like you, if you don't like the so-called diversity is our strength mantra, there's plenty of places, there's whole states that are like vast majority white, towns, cities, you can go there. Like if that's really the environment you want to be in, you can move there. I mean, you have to create your own solutions to problems. Or, if you, another thing people often talk about is, public transit. But honestly, you can you have to like be strategic about what your lifestyle, your salary, and like the house or apartment you rent. If you live in a city and you pick the city wisely, you can totally live like without a car. Like I make do without a car, and I don't. And Sacramento doesn't it ranks pretty lowly on public transit, yet somehow I can manage it because I picked an apartment that is conveniently located to make use of public transit. Look for apartments that are along the subway or the monorail or light rail or streetcar or whatever your city has. I mean, you have to think about these things. You can pick cities that have bike lanes, that have, that are more transit oriented. I mean, it's not like these things don't exist. You just have to look for them. I mean, to paint all America as one thing isn't very true. I mean, I think the main thing I'm getting at is that... Oh, there's another one. Unemployment. If you actually look at, like, the unemployment statistics, America has remarkably low unemployment. It's far better than countries like Spain. In Europe, the times that, children are leaving the houses is getting older and older and older. Like, the average is climbing up to, like, the late 20s or even sometimes early 30s. And, like in Spain, you have, like, 3 cities where the vast majority of the jobs are. And those cities are so expensive. So expensive. And one of the problems was the housing. Like, houses, like, stopped being built after 2008, after the crash. So they have a shortage of housing, and it's further exacerbated by immigration. But, if you compare, like, America to that, America's in a lot better situation. Housing prices. Yes, a lot of housing is expensive. Very, very expensive. But you can use... There's a lot of places that aren't. And you'll have to do some figuring out, like, what you can afford. And if you can move your job to a place where housing is more affordable. I mean, you just have to... You have to be strategic about it. And there's so many... I don't think people realize just how many opportunities in America there are. I mean, like I said, there's 50 states. Across every single geography, political orientation, anything. And there's so many, like... There's colleges, there's internships. There's entry-level jobs. There's trainings. Like, at the local library, I went today, and there was it was like a job fair that's going to go on the 7th of next month. I mean, look at those. Like, go to trade school. Create opportunities for yourself. Like, don't just go to college. I mean, you have to plan out your life. You can't just expect to go to college, get a 4-year degree in something, and then automatically get a job. Like, that's not how the world works. And yes, I believe a lot of the education system is kind of a scam. But whose fault is it for falling for it? I mean, really. I mean, ultimately, the schools... you pay their salaries by giving them tuition. Of course, they're going to advertise their school or glamorize the school a little bit. I mean, is that really the fault of them? I mean, when you see a McDonald's ad on television, you don't, like, get mad that, the McDonald's looks a bit different on the ad than it does in reality, because you just have that expectation. But somehow with colleges, it's different. I'm not quite sure why, but... And with colleges, too. I mean, people complain about the price of colleges, but there are real alternatives to this. I mean, you can do 2 years at a community college, and community college isn't that expensive. There's colleges where tuition isn't that much. I mean, if you don't go to a fancy school, you can find schools. I mean, maybe employers won't be terribly impressed, but at least you'll have a degree. I mean, having a degree is better than not having one. I mean, if you don't have the money, then, stay with your parents the 4 years. Do 2 years of community college and transfer to, transfer to a college to finish the bachelor's. Or don't even do that, just do the associate's degree. Or go into a firefighter training, or become a pharmacist. A bachelor's degree isn't required for this. I'm just be more proactive about, you can't just expect opportunities to fall in your lap. You have to make your own life for yourself. I mean, another thing too is that a lot of people on the right, they call America, one of the derogatory terms for Americans is Amerimutts. Like the so-called diversity. I mean, but honestly, if it bothers you that much, again, move out, or you can take steps to prevent it. If it's the crime you don't like, then don't go out at night. Avoid the public transit. Go to cities that are safer. Carry pepper spray. Or just become tougher. Iron sharpens iron. And, another thing too is the culture. I mean, yeah, I agree, American culture kind of sucks. But you can carve out your own niche for yourself. Don't pretend everybody's the same. They're not. I mean, you can create niches. There's plenty of decent people in this country, and you can find them. Or if you really don't want to interact with people, just stay inside. Are these really such big deals? I mean, or if it's American Woman. I mean, I agree, American women are kind of trash. But you have a thing called a passport, and there are, 190-something countries? And there's a lot of countries who would love to go to a first world country. Find a wife from one of those countries, if you dislike it so much. And the passport, the American passport is very, it's worse than a few others, but it's not beaten by many. It's better than the majority of passports. You can go elsewhere on an American passport. If you think Europe is so much better, then Europe is, willingly hiring Americans. You can, try to make a life there. That's clearly a valid, fine thing to do. If you want to carve out a life there. I mean, don't expect the same treatment you be here, and expect to be treated as a European and not more or not less. But I mean, you can do that, or Canada. If Canada's appealing to you, then go to Canada. I mean, yeah, that's kind of turned into rambling. I think all the videos are rambling. But just don't be a victim. Don't have this passive mentality. I mean, the country really isn't that bad. You just have to create opportunities for yourself, and you have to be smart. Yeah, some things about society are kind of broken. Get over it. You have to deal with it, figure out ways to deal with it. Or you can just be part of most of the ignorant who don't know anything else. They're happier than you if you're complaining about it. And somehow they're living their lives. And why can't you? Okay, bye.